Chapter 13. Cold. Night, living room of the Brown family house. Outside, the world is blanketed in dark blue snow. Branches and stems rustle in the wind. Snow falls heavily, coating the roof of the house and the garden wall. Inside, burning logs crackle in the fireplace. Audrey shifts them with an iron rod, shrinking back at the sparks. Abigail sits on a rocking chair knitting mittens. Louise rests on a pillow in front of the fire. The wind begins to howl loudly. Audrey looks toward the window. Just listen to that sound. I'm glad we're in here with the fire. I was wondering the other day, Audrey, says Louise, where do birds go at night? You never run into them after dark, but they must be cold out there. Well, most of them fly south for the winter, says Audrey. But do you think the ones that don't sleep in little holes in the trees, like little fairy houses, says Louise. Abigail, says Audrey. 1 second, she counts her stitches. What is it? What's your favorite bird? Quail. Food birds don't count. Well, they're pretty on the outside and inside. I'm a lover of the good things in life. You're silly, Abigail. The trees in the forest creak. The sky is obscured by a tapestry of black branches. The night is dark and imposing. Louise sneezes, and Abigail says, You should go to bed soon. I'm not tired, says Audrey, and there's no way they're having school tomorrow. Louise has stopped reading and is lying eyes closed in front of the fire. And Audrey goes on, I don't like the substitute teacher. She's not fun like Maribel. Yes, no cat can compare to Maribel, says Abigail. And Audrey contemplates. You really love her, don't you? As well as I can. We grew up together. I remember staying over at her house nights. We used to hide under the covers and read romance novels together. Her sister couldn't stand all our giggling. I guess we never let her sleep. And Louise stirs to listen to the story. Her mother made homemade jam and served us pie in the morning. The tablecloth was permanently stained by how messy I'd be, though her mother's must have replaced it by now. And Audrey says, I wish you'd tell us more stories from when you were little. Louise looks warningly at Audrey, as if to say, don't try to go any further. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So Louise looks warningly at Audrey, as if to say, don't try to go any further. Audrey sees this and looks guilty, but annoyed. And Abigail goes on. Well, there's not too much to say. A lot of getting in trouble with Mom. I lost a hat once during a particularly windy day. I cried about it for over 2 days. Louise cuts in. You should read us one of those books sometime as a bedtime story. I think they got thrown out, or they're stuck in storage somewhere impossible to find. What was that poem that Emily used to like? The frost performs its secret ministry when we were clothed alike. And after a pause, Audrey says, Esther goes to the library after school. I think she must read a lot of books. She's going to be really special, I think. Louise yawns. Audrey kneads the floor and looks into the fire. Louise conks out first, and Audrey gets up, wrapping a blanket around her sister. She hears a creak as Abigail gets up from the rocking chair and goes into the kitchen. Audrey stands by the rocking chair waiting for her to return, but nearly falling asleep. Abigail comes back with a cup of tea and finds Audrey asleep in front of the chair. She looks at her fondly and sympathetically, picks her up, and sits her on her lap in the rocking chair. Audrey stirs, twitching in her sleep, her eyes slightly opening. Abigail drinks her tea and reads a newspaper. The wind howls. She reads over a passage in the paper chronicling deaths and accidents. She sighs, growing uncomfortable and thinking. The snow on the ground. Abigail and Maribel at Nolan's grave. And Abigail says under her breath, Nolan in the ground. Scene change. Morning. Audrey rouses from sleeping on the rocking chair. Abigail is gone, having gone to sleep in her own room. Louise is sleeping on the floor. The storm has receded, and birds chirp in the early morning sun outside the window. Audrey groans, getting up out of the rocking chair with a blanket around her back. She crouches down to wake Louise. Louise. And Louise has her eyes shut. The storm stopped. Let me sleep. On the floor? Louise gives no response. Audrey opens the small closet and puts on a coat and boots. As she's dressing, Gloriana comes downstairs. You're up early, honey. I didn't sleep well. I'm sorry to hear that. Can I make you some eggs or toast? Sure. Eggs on toast. Audrey opens the front door and takes a step outside, looking at the fresh white snow. She walks out the garden gate and toward the stream right of the house. The boulders on the shore are dusted with a thick layer of frost. Inside, Gloriana carries Louise upstairs to her room. Audrey approaches the water of the stream, frozen over, and places a paw down. She easily breaks the ice and attempts to drink, recoiling from the coldness of the water. She skips back into the garden and sits atop the wall. The bright yellow sun hurts her eyes, but she spots movement in the far distance. Willie hobbles on all fours through the deep snow, carrying a basket in his mouth. Audrey hops down from the wall and hops through the snow to meet him. What are you doing out here, Willie? Aren't your paws cold walking in that snow? And Willie puts the basket down in order to speak. Sorry. I came with food. Audrey sniffs at the basket, and Willie opens it for her. Shortbread my mom made. I'm taking it out as a going-away gift. Going away? And Willie says guiltily, Pa's been wanting us to move for a long time. But it's still going to be winter for quite a long time. Where are you going? Oklahoma. Oklahoma? Why? Dunno. It's bigger, so more land for farming. Ma's got some family there. And Audrey pouts. Well, I think that sounds just terrible. Thanks. I'll miss your attitude when I'm gone. What about Henry? He'll miss you so much. There's nothing that can be done about it. He takes a bag of shortbread out of the basket. Give this to your mother for me then, won't you? Audrey takes the bag and says to him, You should at least say goodbye to Louise. We'll get your paws warmed up too. Come on. Audrey leads Willie back to the Brown house, in through the front door, and Gloriana is surprised. What? Who's this? Hello, ma'am. He's Willie, a friend from school. Willie presents the shortbread to Gloriana. My mother's made these as a parting gift, now that we're moving away from home. Oh, interesting. Well, we're not moving anytime soon. She made them for the whole town, did she? She didn't. Only for the folks we like best. Well, I'll take the compliment. Clean your paws off and you can get yourself warmed. Willie dips his head nervously and sits by the fireplace, and Audrey says to him, I'm going to wake Louise up. Audrey skips upstairs. Gloriana puts together Audrey's breakfast in the kitchen and says under her breath, Some mother sending him out in the snow. Audrey enters her bedroom, where Gloriana has put Louise in her bed. Audrey kneads at Louise's shoulder. Hey, Louise, wake up. And Louise hisses a bit. What? Willie's downstairs. He says he's leaving. What? What do you mean? I don't know. You can ask him. Get dressed. Flustered, Louise gets up. Downstairs, Willie looks awkwardly around the house, anxious. Gloriana eyes him suspiciously because he's stinky and also Irish, but not because she knows that Louise likes him, because she doesn't. Louise walks cautiously downstairs, next to Audrey. She nods good morning to her mom and approaches Willie. Audrey says you're leaving. Willie blushes. Tomorrow. I wasn't sure exactly when, but it looks to be sure. Why didn't you tell anyone? I told Henry, only that Pa wanted to move for a while. He'd been talking about it for years, so I wasn't sure I wasn't sure I believed him when he said it. I wish I'd known sooner. It won't be the same without you. I think you'll be all right. Will you come back to visit? Maybe, but that will be a long time from now. Louise stands up. Here, let me get you something. Sorry. She runs upstairs to her room. Audrey blinks at him while they're alone. And Gloriana calls, Audrey, come get your breakfast. Coming, Mom. And she goes. Louise comes downstairs holding a pile of books, and she hands them one by one to Willie. You can read these while you're traveling. Here, this one's about pirates, and it has some pictures in it. And Willie's a little bit flustered. That's okay. I don't need anything. Are you sure? I really don't mind. It's all right. I don't want to take anything of yours. I've already taken your hospitality as it is. Sorry, I should get going. Louise's elephant ears droop because she's sad and also dumb. And Willie says to Gloriana, Thank you, ma'am. Louise cuts in, though. I'll walk you out. Louise walks Willie out of the garden gate. Audrey watches them from the window, eating her eggs. She can see them speaking, but can't hear them. And Gloriana says, matter-of-factly, She's too nice. Perfect little girl. Will grow into a fine lady. Audrey says, So much is changing, Mom. I miss Maribel, and now Willie's never coming back again. That's the way life is, you see. Especially now that you're getting older. Don't you want to go to boarding school? I think so. That will be a big change no matter what. So it's no worry that things are different now. You have a whole bright life ahead of you. But don't talk to me about college. It's unbecoming for a young lady. Okay, Mom. Louise walks back into the house, holding back emotion with dried tears on her cheeks. She sits down at the table next to Audrey, looking miserable and tired. Gloriana gives her a plate of hot food. Louise sniffles and stares down at the plate. And Gloriana yells across the house to Charles, Dear, get me some wood for that fire. And she walks out of the scene. And Audrey approaches Louise. Well, she's still sitting there. It's going to be okay. Louise pouts. I hate today. I'm going back to sleep. She pushes her plate aside and gets up to go upstairs, walking past the books that Willie left. Are you going to eat that? Calls up Audrey. Louise sulks under the covers. Audrey walks in cautiously, tiptoeing around her bed. She stares, unsure what to do, but decides to try to comfort Louise. Audrey rests her head on the covers. Stop it, Audrey. I'm just trying to be nice. I don't want your kindness. Her eyes flash with surprising aggression. Just leave me alone. Audrey looks crestfallen, astonished and hurt. Chapter end.